There's no greater bond that's built than when something goes sideways. When there's a problem, and as a leader in the company, you show up on the job site.
Welcome to Just a Girl in Construction, the podcast for hardworking construction workers who want to drop the tool belt and build the skills to move into a management position. If you're an on-site construction worker seeking a management position, then this podcast is for you. Our first guest on the podcast is Ron Nussbaum. He's the popular podcast host from Construction Champions and owner of BuildersCom. Ron and I are going to talk about the similarities between military service and the culture in construction. We're also going to talk about the importance using education and mentorship in construction leadership and how to not be that guy in construction management. So, stick around to find out how Ron transitioned from a Marine Corps grunt to building a successful construction company. Ron, thank you so much for being here today with Just a Girl in Construction podcast. I'm excited to have you here and really kind of turn the tables on you, because I know that you have a very successful podcast that's well respected with the Construction Champions. And let's just start with that first question. You usually bring so much energy to the table. So how do you keep that energy and motivation going in your role as a leader in the construction industry?
Cory, it's fantastic to be here. And that is a great question. And sometimes one I ask myself. I really think it just comes down to having a passion for the construction industry. Like, that's why Construction Champions podcast was born. It's why I do what I do now. Like, I'm trying to fix a problem in the industry that I felt firsthand. And there's just this excitement and this passion around that even when I get aggravated and I'm like, oh man, I got to get up, or I got to do this again, or I feel it and I just get excited and I'm like, it don't matter. Like, none of this matters, is because in the long haul, everybody is going to be impacted by this. And if we're going to do it, we better just bring the energy. And like I say it all the time on my podcast, is if I'm going to do it, the construction industry has been very good to me. I feel like it's what I owe the industry, is to just bring it 100%.
So I love that, but I want to dive just a little bit deeper on that, because you said that this was one of the reasons why you got into construction. And I love that it is passion that is driving that energy, because we often know that when we can be passionate about something, it takes much less energy to be able to operate and move forward in that way. But what was it that you saw in the construction industry that really triggered you and provided that desire to move into this space?
So it's becoming more known now because I've started talking about it. But how I ended up in construction was I got out of the Marine Corps, and I wasn't planning on getting out of the Marine Corps. I blew my knee out after we got back from Iraq on our Afghanistan workup. But my plan was to be a Marine. Like, that's what I was going to do. The Marine Corps said, no, we're done with you. And that is how I ended up in the construction industry. And what I found was I found a brotherhood. I found the camaraderie. On the job site, I found what I yearned for and what I wanted so much, and what I found in the Marine Corps. So it was like this perfect transition happened where a lot of guys struggle and a lot of girls struggle transitioning out of the military. I ended up on a job site running a jackhammer and was like, all right, this might be it. Like, these guys around me, like, they understand me. They're here to get a job done. I am too. Like, this might just work. And from there, I spent over a decade and I've done everything in a construction business, from running the jackhammer to running the company and everything in between. But it was that initial day on the job site where I was trying to find my place. I was trying to find my home, and I just happened to find it on a job site. And that is what sparked all of the passion for the construction industry.
Well, thank you. And I really appreciate the insight from a veteran, because this is a place where I do have a soft spot for individuals who I think would be so absolutely prepared to be amazing in construction management because of the structure and the organization and being able to lead the way that they do. And so I'm glad that you were able to find it. I hope that maybe together we can continue showing that path to them. But, the brotherhood that you talk about, brotherhood, sisterhood, to me, it's one thing, right? And it's just really being able to appreciate that feeling of family that you get with some of those people. But, I sometimes don't see that carry over into different levels of the construction industry. So there might be like what I call the great divide between those who work in the field and those who are in management positions. So as you've evolved and grown in your construction leadership, how have you seen that brotherhood change? And is there anything that you could say that might bring that divide closer?
Yeah, you just gave me chills. Like, because I love this conversation. We've had this conversation before, and it's important to continue to have it. And here's where I differ. I was a grunt in the Marine Corps. I was a laborer in the field, became a foreman, became a supervisor, became a manager, and then moved into leadership. I never forgot what it was like to be the one swinging the hammer out there. And if I had guys that had never swung that hammer, I would have them go spend a couple weeks out in the field, because there is a huge disconnect, and it's because we allow there to be a disconnect. We don't step up and just say there's not going to be, because that's hard. It was hard for me to move into leadership roles and still keep that bond. But what I did was I kept going out in the field. I would show up. There's no greater bond that's built than when something goes sideways, when there's a problem, and as a leader in the company, you show up on the job site. I remember this one, we used to set a lot of sump pumps. And I remember I had this crew out all day. They couldn't get it set. They were underwater. It was such a problem. And I was like, here's the thing. It's like, I have a meeting at 4. As soon as it's done, like, I would be at your job site no later than 5:30. Like, I would be there. If I could come now, I would, but I cannot. I showed up at that job at 5:30, and by 6:30, we had it set, water pumping, and I was soaking wet. And those guys forever told that story. But the thing is what they didn't know is I had built a career on that prior. Like, they knew Ron as the leader, as the one in charge, the one that just got shit done when it needed to get done. They didn't know me as being the guy out in the field that ran a crew that did all of this stuff for years. And that's why that if we don't let our true colors, if we don't just let it be, there is a divide, but we let the divide happen.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I call it order of precedence, and I really feel like everyone should have to go through the rungs of the ladder before they get promoted in order to be able to have an appreciation of what the guys in the trench are doing on their way up the promotion ladder. But I do want to ask you, when you're talking about the leadership, and how does that differ from the military versus how you're talking about it now in construction? Because construction did learn its leadership capabilities from the military of using an authoritative down type of leadership where everyone had to stay in line because your lives depended on it, literally. But then in construction, we tend to want to promote this opportunity for surrounding ourselves with those that have the special skill sets that are going to support our leadership and be able to use a motivational, inspirational leadership style. So, how have you adapted to that?
Well, so I would say is that your guys out in the field, they don't want to be motivated by a speech. They want to be motivated because you're willing to pick up the shovel and be there when it's bad. So see, here's what happens in the military is that it sucks all the time for everybody. Like if you're I was in the infantry and like we'd be out in the woods for weeks at a time and the staff NCOs, the officers were there, first sergeant was there. It sucked for everybody. You know what that drove? Camaraderie. It brought us together because we knew, does first sergeant have it better than us because he's sleeping over there in not the tent with the two other guys? Yeah. But is he at home with his wife and family? Is he out here in the misery in the cold with us running the, yeah. So even though it might have been a little bit better for them, we were still suffering together, and it brought this camaraderie, and that is the motivation that's needed. Like it's not about getting up and being able to deliver an hour, a hoorah, hoorah, everybody's fired up speech to get people up and going. I mean, that stuff has to happen, but the true motivation comes from when they're like, all right, yeah, like it doesn't suck for him as bad as me and not as much, but it does
But it
sometimes.
still sucks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it creates that what's the word I'm looking for, where they can see, it's like not looking in the mirror, it's not a reflection, but it's being able to say, I can relate with that because one day I want to be there, and that's the kind of leader I want to be.
It's funny that you bring that up because what I've recognized is that a lot of the people from the site field who want to move into a management position has so often had resistance against the management individuals who've been on their job site. And now all of a sudden they're talking about wanting to be in that management role.
Yeah. And here's one of the things that aggravates me is guy, they have that. So I was so like, I knew what kind of leader I was. I knew I had a lot of development. I still have a lot of development I personally have to do to continue to go where I want to go. But what I knew was I wasn't going to be one of the guys that said, I don't ever want to lose my roots. And I'm not going to be like this guy. And 6 months down the road, they are the splitting image of what they said they didn't want to be. And in construction, it happens so much. It's for some reason, we lose that sense. And I think that's why there's one of the big disconnects between the office, between management, between field workers, is for some reason, you can take a field worker out of the field and put them in a management role. And within 6 months, they're that person they said they never wanted to be. And that has to stop. But that's a leadership thing because you're forced into that. I had some very bad coaching in the construction industry on how I should be and how my personality is and how I should dictate all that. And it was all wrong because all we can be is the best person we are. Like I can only be the best Ron I can be, and I need to lean into being that. But for some reason, in construction, there's this thought that we shouldn't be who we are, even though who is working for us is us. Like all my guys wanted me to do was just be Ron with them and just be that black and white guy that helped get them to where they needed to go. They didn't want anything else.
Yeah, a lot of times I find that that divide is so great because one entity doesn't understand what the other one really does. And that if the superintendents understood what was being done behind the curtains of a project manager, and the superintendent explained to the project manager why they can't jump on that right now because they're putting out fires on the job site currently, and be able to educate them in that moment of the roles and responsibilities of a superintendent, that not only would it develop their relationship and their communication opportunities, but it would make that divide smaller. So when the field did want to jump into a management position, it would be easier. But I want to ask you, you had mentioned that you're not done improving. And a lot of people would see you and admire your success, and they would not really understand what paths you have specifically identified for yourself in your growth. So sometimes we just grow wherever the open door is, but it sounds like you have a specific plan for yourself. So how did you develop that plan, and what is it in order to kind of help somebody else who might be focused on following a similar pathway?
I just keep working on myself and keep working on my passion, not just necessarily my passions. So it's about finding who you're meant to be and the reason you're meant to be here and continuously developing into that. I thought I was supposed to be a Marine, and then I wasn't. And I ended up in construction, and I knew I was destined to be a leader. So I put everything into that. And I didn't have a construction management degree. I didn't have any construction experience. But what I had was an hour plus drive every day to work that I could listen to stuff and educate myself. And I knew I could outwork everybody around me. Now I have this software company. Like, the trajectory of all of this is insane. Like, if I tell myself this is like, how does this even happen? So now I have this software company, and the goal is to build it up, fix communication in the construction industry, and then exit it, which leads me to where my passions really intersect. And that's being able to help veterans with their businesses and being in a financial perspective where I can just do this and make it happen and help transition guys and girls out of the military into a place where they can be successful and not have to worry about it. Like that is where I'm trying to go. And that is why, like I say, I have a lot of learning to do. I have a lot of growing to do, because in order to get there, it just takes a lot. And it's a never ending cycle. Leadership and personal development is a tangible asset. If you are not continuously working on it, you will lose it.
So let me get a little bit personal. And if you don't want to answer it, you don't have to. But this is one thing that I find being an educator myself and recognizing that we often have different learning styles. And that most of those that go into the military or go into construction, we have a more kinesthetic learning style where we do well in activity or motion or being able to observe. And so a lot of times when we're going through high school, we might struggle a bit because we don't really understand the same way that the teacher's teaching the other 30 students, but yet we kind of find our way in auto mechanics or wood shop or any of that. And so how has your learning style been able to evolve all of these years later when you're continuing to look at this personal growth opportunity for yourself?
So I found school to be relatively easy and more of a pain in the ass than anything. Like, I ended up not even finishing my senior year. I was pretty much asked to leave school as a junior. I wasn't even going to graduate, but my mom really wanted me to, and she's like, if I can make it to where you only got to do a couple of things, because I went to a private school, I was right there to be able to graduate. Where you do it? And I said yes. So I got my diploma, luckily, because you need one of those to go into the Marine Corps. I will say I agree. Like, we learn doing things. that's how it's all about repetitive tasks. Just do. It's high discipline. That's how the military is. Construction, it's why it converts so well, is because it's very repetitive. But the thing is we can go learn a lot of other stuff outside of there, and that's how we advance. That's how you get better. You're not going to learn on the job site how to be the best manager or how to be the best leader within a company. You're going to learn that on your free time in books or audio books or programs that you take on your own. Like that, it's up to us as myself, the listeners, to take any of the personal growth upon ourselves. Some companies might offer some stuff. Take advantage of it because a lot of people don't.
Yeah, no, this has been my entire goal with construction management online and offering skill builder mini courses that really give people very specific construction management tasks that they can learn from. And so I appreciate that plug that you just gave me.
Well, when in 2011, 2010, 2011, when I got out and I ended up in construction, there was nothing. Like, I just went straight into business books and management and leadership books and just how do you build a business? How do you just become a leader? And I just became what I envisioned I would always want to work for. And anytime anything went sideways, I always asked myself that, was like, if I was that employee, if I was that person, would I have been happy with that outcome? And just continue learning from that. The thing is, with all of this, is like, it's just doing. Like, we all suck at everything to begin with. Your first conversation as a manager with an employee it's going to be awful. You should go into it with the understanding of that and be okay with that. Like, let them know. It's like, they already know. Like, you sit somebody down, they know it's your first time. Chances are you probably know the person. I remember when I had to fire the first person that I knew, and I knew really well. And you know what? That was a horrible experience, and it just didn't go well at all. But I learned from it, and I got better. Not that we want to get better at firing people, but you do, I think everybody can understand, is like, it's all about the reps and being okay with just not being good at something.
Yeah, I mean, it's all baby steps. It's just being able to build that confidence time after time and recognize that the one thing you didn't like about how you did it last time is the one thing you're going to change the next time that you move forward and do it. And so I really appreciate that. And also in the appreciation and understanding of mentorship and being able to lean on the experience of other people's in that moment that you don't have the experience necessary to take that first step. So can you talk about any mentors that you've had or how you were able to specifically ask someone for their mentorship in the development of your construction leadership?
Yeah. So, I mean, the mentors are so important. Having mentor groups around you, being involved with I currently, tomorrow morning, I'll be meeting with, I'm involved with the University of North Carolina in Wilmington here with a mentor, their Center for Entrepreneurship. Like, I have a mentor group of 6 guys that we meet every month, and they continue to just challenge me. Like, that's the point of it, is to help move you along and let you see the blind spots that you don't see. Or in my case, is, like I said, I'm just a Marine that was in construction that owns a software company. So what did I do? I went and found a bunch of people that have been in software to mentor me in that, because, like, that's my growth that needs to happen. Like, I can go run 30 crews tomorrow. Like, no problem at all. Let's go rock and roll. Growing a software company, completely different. It's just a different machine.
Well, I agree with you, but I also believe that the perspective that you bring to those 6 gentlemen have probably opened their eyes to different aspects that even in their software expertise, that it could change the way that they approach things too. And so recognizing that when you're looking for mentorship, it's not one-sided. It's not just you seeking from someone else. It's often them learning from you in that moment too. So I think that's a valuable lesson.
Absolutely, and that's why a few of the guys do it. Like, they're like, "I'm here to help where I can," but to be honest, I get more out of this than typically the person we're mentoring gets. Because once again, it's building some camaraderie. It's building a group. Like, we get together and we brainstorm ideas. They get to hear me talk about the pitfalls, the successes, everything that's going on. But that's how it always should be. You should always have somebody that you're working with. And what I suggest is, who's that leader around you that's everything you would like to become? And then go start just ask them. We're all human. No, people don't want to. It's a split road. People don't want to see people be successful, but at the same time, they don't want to leave them out hanging. If
But I
they think
also
they,
know a lot of superintendents who like telling stories, and they'll tell you all day long
well,
how
no,
good
see,
they are, and
that's
I'm
the
ready to
thing.
listen to those stories too.
If you're out in the field, like, it's free game.
Yeah.
Like, I was used to, when you're traveling and on the road, like, you have these guys around you, and you're exactly right, Cory. They want to talk. I
Yeah.
want to talk. Everybody wants to talk. You give them an opportunity and just ask questions. Like, that is the best way to
Yeah.
just, and they don't even know they're mentoring you.
Yes.
They don't even know that they're having this huge impact, but you just ask questions about stuff you don't understand, and then shut up and let them talk.
Exactly. Well, I'm gonna let you talk about your software company for a little bit. How did you make that transition from going to the military, coming into construction, and then seeing a need in the construction industry to build BuildersCom?
I got tired of getting my ass chewed by customers is what ended up happening. And I really dove into why. Like, why do we have this problem? And everything came back to communication. Every problem. It just seemed like no one was ever talking to the right person. Like, my phone would ring and it would be somebody wanting to talk to me about something that's happening on their project. And they're like, "I went on the website, I found you, you seem to be the guy to talk to. You're at the top of the totem pole." And I'm like, "I am sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner. I am the absolute worst person in the company to talk to. We have 30 crews going. I do not know everything about every project." And I had no way to know everything about every project. And I would show up at houses and I'd only have half the story that my guys wanted me to know. I would have the customers half as well. And it would always end up in the situations in the driveway. And one night I was laying in bed and it just hit me. It's like, if I just had a piece of software that worked as air traffic control and they got all the communication in one place, and then made sure homeowners were talking to the right people and the right people were always having the conversation, and then it created a record of everything. So I could, within 5 minutes, know everything that was said, everything that was done on a project. This could not just fix this for me. We could solve this problem for the entire construction industry. And I made the decision to bring that software to market. It is now BuilderComs. We were a top 20 startup for the International Builders Show this year. And that's what I do now. Is my passion is around fixing communication. 35% of construction projects end in a dispute without any documentation around it. It's just a bunch of he said, she said. No one knows exactly what was going on. We're in a world. I think we can get that number drastically down with BuilderComs. And on average, miscommunication costs you $4,300 a year per employee that you have. So that's what I do now.
That's fantastic. I love that. Of course, I love documentation, which there was an argument on LinkedIn the other day about if you have to have that much documentation, you shouldn't be in construction. But I feel like it's all proactive and preventative is the way I look at it. But I love the fact that you were able to identify a problem like that because in construction, we're problem solvers. That's what we do. If you were talking to a student or to someone who was trying to look at developing a succession plan for their employees and their company, based off of your experience and how you've evolved your construction over the years, what kind of leadership information or discussion would you have with someone who's looking at designing their career path in the construction industry?
The sky's the limit. Like, I think what everybody thinks about when they think about construction is they just think about the field workers. Like, oh man, you want me to go swing a hammer? And that couldn't be any farther from the truth. Is every occupation operates within construction. I tell people if you're in law school and you're going to be a lawyer, there would be no better place to be a lawyer than in the construction space. Like, it's awesome. If you're in finance, if you're an accountant, if you're a bookkeeper, if you like to answer the phone and set appointments, all of these are jobs that are in the construction space, and they all have potential to continue to grow. And the thing is you get that camaraderie because that leadership is you're going to run into somebody like a Ron Nussbaum that's running one of these companies. And it's the same leadership in the appointment center as it is in service in the accounting department. And you get the same culture. It might not be as tough and I don't know, you could say offensive as what it might be out in the field, but you're going to get that same camaraderie. And I think that's what people miss. I think it's important. People should spend time out in the field. They should understand what the field workers do. And that's because I was a grunt and I was a laborer. Like, I just believe everybody should have to suffer like we do to be able to do anything. But there's career trajectories past the field. And the sky is the limit. I mean, some of the biggest companies in America and in the world are construction companies. If you want to go run a business or be a CEO or be a COO, some of the biggest opportunities are in construction. You just don't, it's just not sexy. It's why we don't hear about it. But I'll tell you, there's some construction guys out there, and not like owners, employees that are making a lot of money running construction companies. But because it's construction, I believe that's one of the reasons the notoriety is just not there. Like, you're like a guy like Tommy Malo, who would do $285 million in garage doors, one of the best business minds of our time, does not get half of the media attention because it's just not a sexy industry.
Yeah, well, I mean, being a woman, I would consider those high incomes sexy, but it's just it's
Well,
just
I
the
think
way
that's why
some
that
of us look at it.
no one around here cares, because we're
Yeah.
all like, I used to get, we'll dive a little into something here. Is my wife worked in a plastic surgery office for 15 years, and I would go to these Christmas parties, and these doctors who couldn't operate a couple $1 million a year plastic surgery business would laugh at me when I said I ran a construction business, and we're doing 25 million in revenue. And it would blow my mind that they thought that it was such a whatever that I worked in construction that they found it funny when we ran circles around. They couldn't last one day.
while they're still paying off their student loans, right?
Yeah, and that's
We'll just wait for you to make enough to pay off their student loans for them. But
yeah, but that's another great trajectory if you are a student out there. Like you don't have to have a college diploma to do this and to be successful in it.
yeah, I agree, but I believe also that that's being sold a little bit too hard, because that does take a special individual who does have the wherewithal to know that if you're going to go into entrepreneurship, you're going to be working your ass off. It's not just something you walk into just because you don't have a degree. And often to me, college really isn't about a certificate or degree. It's just a change in the life education that you get, in the different relationships that you build in those moments that you're outside of your parents' wings anymore. And it's your first life experience of really adulthood. But you bring me around to really what I love about construction, and that is that if you can manage your life, you can manage a project, right? Just the skills that we have in our life are able to transition to our success into the construction industry. And so I love how you've been able to do that by going from the military and working in construction and now developing technology in construction, which is so incredibly important. And I just think that you offer a tremendous amount of value to the construction industry. And I'm so grateful that you were my first podcast guest, and the opportunity to be able to have a little bit of behind the curtain coaching from an expert. So thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be the first guest here. Uh, I love this. I think anytime anybody, a couple people come together and have a conversation around the construction industry, where it's headed, how do we be better leaders? Like nothing bad can possibly come from that. And it's what the construction industry needs, because not everybody relates to Ron Nussbaum, and those people might relate to you. And I think that's what matters, is we start getting these conversations out there. We have the voices to do it. When you think about how big podcasting is and how small of a percentage are construction-based podcasts, like there's plenty of room for a lot of people to be doing this, because the construction industry is just going to continue to grow.
It's the sole basis for all industries in the world, right? I mean, we literally would not have anything on our planet if it weren't for the construction industry. So it is about time that we step it up and start talking about it and start redefining what sexy looks like, so
Well,
construction can fall into that category as well.
absolutely.
So, Ron, thank you again so much. And I do want to thank you for your contribution to the construction industry and for the education and value that you bring to us. But if people wanted to learn more about BuilderComs or about the Construction Champions podcast, where can they reach out to you?
Absolutely. So you can find me on any social media, from LinkedIn to TikTok and everything in between. BuilderComs, COMS.com. You can find the podcast on there. You can find out more about what we do, as well as all of our social media links on there as well. So Ron Nussbaum is pretty easy to find. I try to do my best to be easy to find.